very excited to be welcoming Richard Osman. He's an author of a fabulous canon of mystery books, all of which began with the Thursday Murder Club, centered around a group of senior citizens who set out to solve a murder, which became the fastest-selling adult crime debut since records began. This and his subsequent novels were number one million copy international bestsellers, as well as New York Times bestsellers. As well as a writer, he is a well-loved television host and TV personality back home. Coupled with his impressive writing skills, this only makes his claim as a national treasure in the UK stronger. Osman will be in conversation with Daniel Stashower. He's also a New York Times bestselling author and a three-time winner of the Edgar Award from the Mystery Writers of America. His most recent book is American Demon, Elliot Ness and the Hunt for America's Jack the Ripper. His previous books include The Hour of Peril, The Beautiful Cigar Girl, and Teller of Tales, The Life of Arthur Conan Doyle. So please join me in welcoming Richard Osman and Daniel Stashower.
Hello. Can I ask a question as an English person in America? Did you understand a word of what Richard was just saying? Because even for someone English, it was quite tricky. He's from Burnley, Dan.
This is Richard Osman's first time in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
On his first ever U.S. book tour. And I'm delighted to be here because I would be in the crowd otherwise. So it's a particular pleasure for me as a Richard Osman fan. But I'm also here tonight as the son-in-law of a quirky, eccentric, octogenarian British mother-in-law.
Whoa.
In a British retirement community.
No way.
Who goes to a weekly knit and natter group. And
my mum does that. She also calls it stitch and bitch.
Oh,
she calls it.
Can't top that.
Yeah.
But it is a pleasure for me because for the first time in 27 years of marriage, I think my name will come up in this week's meeting of the club. So thank you, Richard, for
it's
that.
An absolute pleasure.
So here we are celebrating the publication of the fourth Thursday Murder Club book, which publishes today. Richard, can you tell us how you came to write this particular book?
Well, this one, I mean, hopefully people have read some of the books, and they're about people in their late 70s, early 80s in a retirement village solving crimes. And it was always meant to be a series, and the first four were meant to be a quartet. So I will be doing more, but this is the last one for a little while at least. So I was always working towards the end of 4 books. So this one, hopefully it's got the same amount of laughs and warmth. It's certainly got the same amount of murders. Don't worry about that. There's plenty of that. But there's some emotional things going on with some of the stories, and some of the things that even started in book 1. I just sort of wanted this to feel like the end of the first act of the Thursday Murder Club. I think by the end of the book, you will agree they probably need a year off. They need a little bit of time just to drink wine and watch television and not solve murders. But I'll be throwing more murders at them next year. I promise you that.
I think, as Joyce says, something a little less murdery.
Something a little less murdery, yes. Exactly. She doesn't get her wish in this book, unfortunately.
No, she does not. And as you mentioned, you alluded to, there is an emotional kick to this book, and there are some changes afoot. No spoilers, but how did you approach the things in this book that would mark a very particular change for the big 4?
I feel I'm so immensely fortunate to write about these 4 characters because I get so much joy from them and so much mischief. They're in their 80s. There's so few consequences to anything they do, and I get to take advantage of that, and I have all the fun of that and all the joy of that, and I've wrung so much out of the 4 of them. But I think you have to pay a tax on that, which is to tell the truth about what it is to be older as well. So along with the fun that they have and these new friendships they've got and these new adventures they go on, they are around frailty and grief and dementia and things like that. And you have to write about it. If you love your characters, you have to believe they're real, and if you believe they're real, you have to tell the truth about them. And so I think in this book, maybe we see a little bit more of that side of things. But yeah, I mean, jokes afterwards as well. But it's there are everyone in England is tweeting me and saying, "You just made me cry on the train." So if I make you cry on a train, I do apologise.
You did make me cry on the train.
Yes. I got him.
In this book, as before, there are a lot of different points of view, not just from the A-team, the big four,
Yes.
but there are lots of new characters. And
Yeah.
you toggle through a lot of different perspectives and a lot of
Yeah.
different characters. How do you, first of all, keep them all straight,
Yeah.
but also decide for a particular scene which point of view you're going to proceed with?
Well, I love writing from different characters' points of view. My basic thing with, as you say, the big four, the A-team, the Beatles, the main thing with those, I think, at first, I think whose point of view would it be funniest to look at this scene through? So I'm not thinking the scene is going to be funny, and I'm not thinking I want to make this comic, but I do think, how, you know, even with a serious scene, who would it amuse me most to write this scene from the point of view? Or sometimes it would be Ibrahim, often it's Joyce, almost always it's Joyce. So I have to slightly parcel it out. I did a scene in the Bullet That Missed where Ron gets a massage, and you know that's a classic Ron scene. It's very uncomfortable having a massage, and so you're inside his head, but he's also thinking about the crime at the same time. So it's lovely doing that. But no, I love it if I bring a new character in, because I don't have huge plots up on the wall or anything like that. So for example, there's a bad guy in this book called Garth, who's Canadian.
Who's not American.
He is not American.
Yes.
He is Canadian, and he says, God cries every time you lie to a Canadian. That's Garth's thing. But he was someone who just I just brought him in for sort of one line, really. And then I thought, oh, who's this guy? This guy is interesting. And then I want to write a chapter from his perspective. So I always try, if ever I've got any characters at all, I try and make them as three-dimensional as possible. And I try to sort of think what they might say or think that other people wouldn't think. And then I'll write a chapter from their perspective. And that's the real joy of it, is to get inside people's heads. And I write quite short chapters anyway, because I have a short attention span. And I like to entertain myself, which is, you know, that's the key when you're writing, right? You have to, if you're boring yourself, then good luck, readers. And so I like to do short chapters, and I like to hop about who's talking, who's thinking, and it's more fun, I think. And you can explore the world a little bit more if you've got different voices in your book.
In the mystery community in the States, we talk a lot about plotters versus pantsers,
Right.
People who plot it all out beforehand in the manner of, say, Ibrahim,
Right.
or a seat of the pants kind of approach, say,
Like
Ron.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you one or the other, or a combination of the two?
I'm much more of a pantser, I have to say. That's how are we spelling that? P-A-N-T-S-E-R. Okay, I gotcha. Not P-A-N-Z-E-R. No, okay. Then I'll be a pantser. No, I sort of roughly know where I'm heading. And in this new book, for example, it starts. It's the day after Christmas. You call that Boxing Day here, right?
We do.
Yeah, good.
Well, but I'm married to a Brit, so
okay.
I'm not reliable.
Does everyone call it Boxing Day? That sounded like a lot of no's to me. Yeah.
It's a lot of no's. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so December the 26th.
Tell us about Boxing Day, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, my chance. We call the 26th Boxing Day. Nobody knows why, but we do. And in this book, funnily enough, a box comes through customs on the south coast full of heroin, and our plot begins. And myself and my lovely wife Ingrid were on an antiques television program where celebrities go around and buy antiques and try and compete with each other. And I had this idea of the antiques business is very, very dodgy. I'm sure there are good antiques dealers out there who are not defrauding the IRS and not selling stolen goods. I'm sure there are some, but there are also some that do. And I had this. My grandfather was a cop in Brighton, which is a town in England, and he would always tell me about the antique stores and the stuff that goes on, because they deal in cash and they deal in sort of objects that you don't really know the provenance of. And so I had this, and the antique dealer we were working with said quite often drug gangs will drop shipments off in an antique store, and then a different drug gang will come in the next day and pay for it, and essentially that's the handover. So they're not handing over the drugs themselves, and that was the thing that started the plot in this one.
And thereby hangs a tale.
Thereby hangs a tale, and it was Boxing Day, and it's a box, but I didn't think about that as I did it.
And for those of us who subscribe to WETA Passport, you can see this episode of Richard and Ingrid on a celebrity road trip. It's very, very entertaining, and you can see the idea taking shape in Richard's head.
Yeah, you certainly can. Sorry, you were asking, did myself or Ingrid win? It was me. Yeah, I was. Yeah. Oh, to be fair, to be absolutely accurate, we both lost a lot of money, but I lost slightly less than Ingrid lost.
That's not how I remember it.
Yeah. Oh, really? No, I lost a lot. Yeah.
Now, you alluded to this in the introduction. You had quite a long career in television before you turned to writing novels. Can you talk us through that and how you somehow progressed from behind the cameras to in front of the cameras to way behind the cameras writing the Thursday Murder?
Oh my God! There's barely, actually there is a camera here, but there's rarely cameras these days, which is great. Yeah, I was a TV executive for years. I thought up ideas for television shows, mainly quiz shows. That's what I did for a living, and loved doing it. I mean, that's because I grew up watching TV. I love that sort of stuff. I love formatting shows. And then weirdly, when we were pitching one of those shows to the BBC over in England, I always make sure that the producers play the presenters, because the producers know what's wrong with the program and they can hide it much better. So I took on the role of presenting this show as we were pitching it. The BBC loved the show and then said, would you host it? And I was 40, so this is 12 years ago, something like that. And I thought, why not? So all television shows fail, right? So I'll do a few episodes, and it'll be a lovely story to tell the grandkids one day that I presented a television show, and then it just took off. We did 2,000 episodes, I think, until I had to quit because I'm a writer now, and I didn't have time. So yeah, I do that, and I do another show called House of Games, which is another quiz, and so I'm sort of on. Whoop whoop. Do you know what? In New York yesterday, there were so many House of Games fans. It was great. I was like, this is absolutely crazy. So yeah, there we go. So I do that show. So I was sort of on twice a day, every single day, in England. So if you didn't like me, it was pretty tough. And TV producing is quite difficult. It's quite hard. TV presenting is really, really, really easy. I mean, it is. It's so easy. If you like human beings, and I do, and you like talking to human beings, and I do, and you like sort of competition, and I like that, then it's just sort of you're turning up for work and chatting to people all day, and then they pay you, and you get to keep the suits afterwards. So I think I was looking for slightly more of a challenge towards the end of that run.
But that's the thing. For most of us, being a television executive and then a successful television presenter, that would be enough to be getting on with. How did you wake up one day and say, you know what, I would like to add to this formula, becoming a globally successful author? How did you make that? How did you make that transition?
That's right, Dan. I woke up and thought I want to be a globally successful author.
Well, haven't we all?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good question. I always wrote. I started writing. I did journalism in my teens, and in British TV, I used to write in my 20s. I did sitcoms and all sorts of things like that. So I was always a writer. But I had a failure in my 20s with a sitcom. That, and you put your heart and soul into these things. A book or a sitcom is sort of 2 years of your life, and this show sort of went for nothing. And I thought, I don't know if I want to put myself through that, because if I make a quiz, if it fails, I'd just do another one next week. It's so much more. The turnaround is much faster, and you put so much of your heart into writing that actually, when it goes wrong, it kills you. And so I kind of tucked away the idea of writing for many years. Occasionally I'd start a chapter of something and you think, oh my God, novels are really hard. They're really difficult, right? And so I was sort of 48, something like that, and I had this idea for the Thursday Murder Club, and I thought, you know what, this feels like it's got something in it, and I had a bit more time on my hands, because as I say, I was mainly TV presenting, and it's not difficult, and it doesn't take all that long either. And so for the first time, I just thought, just keep doing it, and I got to sort of 20,000 words, something like that. And that's the point, I think, where writing a book is horrible. It's really painful, right? It's not. There's moments of fun, but mainly it's like years of misery. But at 20,000 words, I was thinking it's honestly going to be more painful now for me to stop.
You can't walk away from that.
Yeah, you can't walk away from 20,000 words. And I liked them, and I was doing it in secret. I didn't tell anybody I was writing, because no one wants to hear a friend who's writing a book. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
I mean, how many people here have had like a chapter of a friend's book emailed to them and say, listen, you don't even have to read it, but just absolutely no pressure at all, but just, do you like it? And then you're like, oh my God, what do I say now? So I thought, just like, training for a marathon, I thought I will just finish it. I will get to the end of this book. That's what I'll do. And then whatever happens with it, at least I will always have done it. At least I'll always know that, I had the discipline to finish a book. And then I sent it to one person who's my lovely agent, Juliet. And yeah, it snowballed from there. Really, it's never, the roller coaster has yet to stop from that moment.
Well, all right, that's how you wrote a book, but
Yes.
this was a very specific idea. This was a very particular idea, and I'm sure everybody is interested to know how you came up with the particular idea of the Thursday Murder Club.
Well, it's my mum lives in a retirement community in Sussex in England, which is a very beautiful sort of place, and you go down there and it's beautiful trees and there's birds flying and there's kind of lakes and it's very, very bucolic. And anyone, as I'm sure everyone here is, anyone who's a fan of Agatha Christie sees that sort of genteel English landscape and thinks this would be an amazing place for a murder, And I remember saying to my mum, I said, this would be an amazing place for a murder. She goes, oh yeah, don't think I haven't thought that. But quite apart from being beautiful, when you go down there, everyone there is over 75. And you'll sit and chat with people. And suddenly I was talking to these people who'd done such extraordinary things with their lives and seem to be really enjoying themselves. And see, there's so much gossip and so much politics and so much wine in this place. And so then I suddenly had the thought, hold on, if there was a murder here, this lot would solve it. Okay. And when I had that thought, I just thought, oh, okay, this is that TV producer bit of my brain. Thought this feels like if you did this properly, people would enjoy it. And I can instantly, what you could see, you'd have characters from very different parts of the world because a retirement community, there's people mix who wouldn't ordinarily mix. And then, funnily enough, I think there was on the notice board there was like a Tuesday Knit and Natter club, and I thought the word Thursday Murder Club came into my head. And I thought, boom, there we go. And I sat down and started writing then. I thought this would be a breeze. And a mere 2.5 years later, there I was with my overwritten first draft.
And how did your mother feel about finding that you had taken the Knit and Natter Club and turned it into the Thursday Murder Club?
Well, she was glad I didn't say stitch and bitch, that's for sure. She was glad about that. It's interesting. I think that when my mum first read the manuscript, she was genuinely terrified. And my mum, I think, read it purely for legal. I think she was thinking, oh, you're going to say that one of my neighbours murdered another one of my neighbours, and you're going to. And I just thought, no, I've made it up. I've used my imagination. I mean, there's bits that are directly nicked from her, but apart from that, it's like it's entirely made up. So first time she read it, she was just reading it, and at the end, she was so relieved that she wasn't going to be sued by anybody, and then she reread it. But all the people who live there. So right at the beginning, I think my mum was slightly worried, and she, they were saying, "Oh, you mustn't say where the retirement village is because everyone's very private. We're very private people, and if the books are hits, then perhaps we'll have tourists." And I said, "It's not going to be a hit, Mum, so don't worry about that." But now, I mean, they might as well sell T-shirts.
Yeah, absolutely. And you must get people coming up. I'm Ron, aren't I? I'm Ron.
Yeah, you wish you were Ron, my friend.
Yeah.
My mum said to me the other day, she said, everyone here thinks I'm Elizabeth. And I'm like, you're so Joyce. How on earth? How different are you with other people that they think you are a former spy? I'm not. You're a primary school teacher. But you go down there now, and firstly, they love it. It's a nice thing to be associated with because in England, there's film crews down there and all sorts of things all the time. But you go down there now, and they pitch you murders. Mm-hmm. They literally, they'll come up and go, "Oh, Richard." You go, okay, hello, Marjorie. Are you well? I'm very well. I just wanted to say there is a concert hall at the edge of the retirement village, and it has a very high balcony, and if you were to push someone off that balcony, they would die. And they go, and like, And you say, well, thank you, Marjorie. But no, they love it. Oh my God, they're constantly pitching me stuff. I'm gonna have to make them sign an NDA sooner or later.
You mentioned Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Were you a mystery reader as a child?
Yeah, I was. Well, as a young child, I used to read the Famous Five. Right, that was my favorite, the Enid Blyton books. And I used to absolutely adore them. Right, I'd adore them. And it was only like about 2 years into this book when someone was asking a similar question. I was talking about the Famous Five, and I remembered how much I loved them. And I thought, oh, that's what you've written. There's 2 women, there's 2 men, there's a dog. And they solve adventures.
5 go knitting.
5, exactly. 5 go knitting. So, yeah, I love that. And then, of course, in England, certainly, you move on to Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers and Ngaio Marsh and people like that. So, yeah, I always love that classic golden age crime thing. And I always think, when I write, I try and write about what's happening today. So I'll always, I will put something about Washington into my next book because I always try and pick up what's happening around me. Because if you read an Agatha Christie or a Dorothy L. Sayers, you learn more about what life was like in England in the 20s and 30s and 40s than you would from some great State of the Nation novel that someone has written, because they're writing about life as it's lived. And so I always think I never worry about my books aging, because you just think, but Agatha Christie was literally just writing about, the train service from Paddington that day, and you read it now, and it's as fresh as ever. But so I love that sense of golden age crime that just tells you about a community and how life is lived.
And I understand you're also a Patricia Highsmith fan.
Oh, I love Patricia Highsmith so much. When I was writing the first book, when you're writing a book, and I know lots and lots of people here will be writing or would have written, it's very hard to know what to read while you're doing it, because you can't read one of your contemporaries, because what if their book is great, and that's gonna annoy you. You can't read anything bad, because I think it gets into your bones. So Patricia Highsmith, she's not going to be writing any more books, spoiler alert.
Yep.
So I knew there was no competition there. I knew I couldn't write as well as Patricia Highsmith, whatever I did. It's just, she's so brilliant. And so during the writing of the first book, I read all the 5 Ripley novels. And they're just amazing. And the thing with her is you're not even spending any time thinking, how does she do it? Because there's no point. Because you just think, she's in a different realm. And that idea that, this is what I think about when I bring criminals and all sorts of things into the Thursday Murder Club. That idea that Tom Ripley is one of the worst people who has ever existed, but all the way through I'm going, oh my God, I hope he gets away with it. Oh, Tom, I hope it's all going to be okay. And just that ability to write those characters and that amorality, but also just to keep the page turning, and write a proper plot as well.
Many of us here tonight are going to be reading the 4th book and thinking that we have now got a complete shelf of Richard Osman's books.
Yes.
That's not quite true. Can you tell us about the World Cup of everything?
The World Cup of everything. That was something I used to do on Twitter, which was we try and work out what the best chocolate bar in the world was, and the best crisps or chips, as you would say, or the best American TV show. So I would always do these things on Twitter. We did them for charity, and they would, we'd make money for charity. So yeah, do you know what? Weirdly, so I wrote a book of it, and it was all, the World Cup of restaurants, the World Cup of all sorts of things, and you could fill it in, and lots of facts about things. And I was writing this, and I was sort of writing 1,000 words a day doing this. And I was thinking, why don't you write 1,000 words a day for a novel rather than a book about which is the best sweet, and what's the best candy? So it's a really good book. It's still available, I'm sure. Maybe not in Politics and Prose, but certainly in England. But weirdly, the discipline of writing it was the thing that first made me think, oh, you could just do this. You could spend that time. Instead of writing about whether Nando's is better than Chipotle, you could be writing a novel. So it's a great book, but actually it's sort of the origin story of the Thursday Murder Club, funnily enough.
And along the way, you discovered what the world's best crisp was.
Yeah, which was pickled onion Monster Munch, which to anyone in America means nothing, right? But I tell you now, Richard from Burnley is like, yeah, I gotcha. Like in England, that's a big deal.
Speaking of Speaking of lists of best things,
Yeah.
in 1992, the British Melody Maker magazine gave the label of Best New Band in Britain to a rising group called Suede.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know anything about that band or have a favorite member?
I do. Well, my brother, Matt, whose book may well be here because he's a novelist now, he was the bassist in Suede and still is the bassist in Suede. And the great thing about Suede is they were big in every country in the world apart from America. America just remained so utterly, resolutely immune to their charms. However much they tried to tame America, America was not for taming.
How about Canada?
Canada, they do okay, but he spends his life, he's 55, they're all in their 50s, this band. They all look amazing. They're all so skinny, they're all dressed in black, and they tour the world, getting paid a fortune for festivals, apart from in America, where literally nobody gives a toss. And it was, so yeah, when I was growing up, so they got massive when I was sort of 22, 23 or something like that. And you'd go and see them at these festivals all around the world. And I remember going to, I was literally on the side of a stage in Barcelona watching them. And there's a guy standing next to me. I got out of his way because I'm quite tall. I'm not a good person to be in your way. And it was David Bowie. And I think, that's cool. And later on that evening, I found a really nice toilet backstage. And, you know, festival toilets are not great, so I found this one. It was really plush and it was carpeted, and you know, it was absolutely lovely, secluded. And I'm in the toilet. There's a knock on the door, and someone said, "Please vacate Mr. Bowie's toilet." And I was using David Bowie's toilet. I had to. I had to leave it a while before I came out, but I did. You know, he's got his own toilet. If you were David Bowie, you'd have your own toilet, right? That's my dream. I bet Lee Child's got his own toilet.
You mentioned that Last Devil to Die brings us to the end of the quartet. Yeah. Can you tell us about the next book up?
Yeah, I can. And it's, as I say, there will be more Thursday Murder Club, I promise. But the next one is about, essentially, it's about a father-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And the father-in-law, he's an ex-cop, and he lives in a village in Hampshire, which is another place in England that's very beautiful in the south of England. He just lives in a small village. He's got a private investigations company. He really just likes to look for cats and do the odd insurance job. He does not ever want to go out of the village. He doesn't want to go to a city. He does not want to be involved in murder. He loves his village. He loves going to the pub. He loves his pub quiz. That's what he's got, the life that he wanted all those years. He is peaceful. He is at peace. His daughter-in-law is a close protection officer who works for billionaires. So he's always around the world. He's always in Dubai and the Bahamas and, you know, jetting off everywhere. Now, she gets herself in trouble. And she needs somebody she can trust. And she doesn't trust anyone apart from her father-in-law. So he is suddenly put on a private jet, much to his disgust, and flown over to the other side of the world, and they have to essentially find out she's being framed for something. They have to find out by who. So it's a story about father-in-law and daughter-in-law, which is great. It's a story about a man who does not want to leave England and is forced to leave England. It's a story about a man who does not want to be eating in a sort of $100 a night steakhouse in Dubai and is forced to do that. All he wants to do throughout the entire book is go home. He wants to protect his daughter-in-law, but really he wants to go home. And it's the two of them, and the person she's protecting is a novelist, and she's like Jackie Collins meets John Grisham. So she's like a kind of 80s, you know, just huge billionaire, you know, made an absolute fortune. And so the three of them sort of form a little gang. I love a little gang, and I send them off around the world. So I'm writing at the moment, which is a terrifying prospect, because you know, because where's Joyce? I'm always thinking, but I'm growing to love them, which is a very good sign.
But do you find yourself hearing the voices of the Thursday Murder Club characters kind of trying to claw their way in?
Occasionally. It's very, very interesting, because the way I try and start, if I've got any new characters at all in these books and in this new, I try and just write conversations between two of them and just sort of hear what they sound like. And yet occasionally during a conversation, one of them will say something that Elizabeth would say. And I think, oh, okay, that's got to go. You can't have a line that reminds you of one of your other characters. And if it's a great line, I think I can give it. But by and large, you just think, no, that's you haven't fully formed that character, because you're just writing a gag that Elizabeth would say. So the ghosts of them are there, but it's essentially their absence. I'm just trying to create these brand new characters who people will love and who people will follow and who people will just keep turning the page. But listen, we'll see. It's supposed to be a series, but if it goes badly, it's a standalone. So.
That's true for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Many of us will be aware that the film rights for Thursday Murder Club were acquired by an obscure American director, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Can you update us on the progress of that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I try not to get involved because I was in the TV business and that's bad enough. But the film business, boy, oh boy, you do not want to pin any of your hopes on the on the film business. But we were supposed to be filming this autumn, so we had a director on board. It was all sort of happening, and now of course we've got the strikes. So we're not. So one would hope we will. One hopes that the strike is settled, and one hopes we'll be filming it next year. And it's fine. I mean, they'll make it at some point, and it'll be fun when they do. But it's there's always something in films that stops it happening.
And you must be getting people coming up to you every day, every minute of every day, telling you, including your mother, telling you who should play each of the.
Oh yeah, if I'm walking down the high street and the people literally shout Helen Mirren at me from across the street, and I always think, do you know what? Because 5 years ago, people would shout that the big show I did was pointless, right? And you'd be walking down the street and people would shout, "Oi, pointless!" like at you all the time, and that's fine. And you go, "Yes." But I would always wonder, people who are walking down the street with me who didn't recognise me, what are they thinking has just happened? That this guy is walking along and 3 people have just shouted pointless at him. What? They must go home and just go, that is a mystery, isn't it? And I guess the same with Helen Mirren. You go, why is everyone shouting? Why is everyone shouting Gary Oldman at that man?
Well, she really is a master of disguise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We want to leave time for your questions because I know you'll have a lot of them. But before we bring this this part to a close, I do have to ask you, Richard, there was an article in Esquire a couple of days ago by the wonderful Sarah Weinman.
Yeah, it's great.
Can you tell us the meaning of the phrase, Ron's forgotten the password?
Well, listen, you're setting me up for a fall here because it's only at the Harrogate Crime Festival, which is the big crime festival in the UK, and everyone goes there. And we were there this year with Lee Child and all sorts of people. And publishers will always say, we got a wonderful idea. We're going to print up some crosswords and we're going to hand them out or something. And they go, we're going to do a murder trail, and people will follow it. And I would say, well, how much is that? How much is that going to cost roughly? And they go, about £2,000. I say, get the £2,000 and put it behind the bar, and the drinks are on me. And that's the best publicity you're ever going to get. That's the sort of engagement you want. And so this year we did it. And so last year the password was something about Joyce. And this year the password was Ron has forgotten the password. So if you went to the bar and said Ron's forgotten the password, you got a free drink. And I said to Sarah Wyman, I said, listen, anyone in America who comes up to me and says, Ron's forgotten the password, I'll buy them a drink. But that's... anyway, I have got to go. It's lovely to see you all.
Richard, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I know Richard will be happy to take questions from all of you.
Shall we go? This is a question that, I don't know, maybe more for your agent than you, but I'm wondering about the discussion when you first wrote this book, because the hard sell of, it's a book about old people in a retirement community, and I think both in the UK and here, we're not so interested in the lives of older people. I'm just curious about what the reaction was. And secondly, how did you luck out in not just getting Leslie Manville, but also Fiona Shaw?
I know, right?
To read the audiobooks.
I know. As to your first question, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting when people start writing. I think the temptation is to write what's selling. And the whole point with a book is it's not going to come out for a long time. So write what's in your heart. Don't write. When I started this book, everything was a dark psychological thriller, right?
A girl on a train or looking through a window.
Everyone was looking through a window on a train, and you didn't know they were telling the truth or whatever, and it turned out they were a ghost, right? So that was. Hold on, that's a good idea. So That's what everything was. And so the thing about the older people is it sounds counterintuitive, but of course it isn't. It's one of those ideas that occasionally in TV you'll stumble upon, where you think this sounds like no one's going to be interested, but everyone is. And my agent's smart enough to go, I think that people will like having heroes who are slightly older than, especially as I hadn't written them like they're sort of cutesy, unbelievable. They were real people. So I think it's a really big strength, and I think when we took it out as well, I think because probably the publishers, well, all they were being shown is another, a girl on an aeroplane who has amnesia, and then, but hold on, it's not her, it was her boyfriend. So, they were used to those books, and they hadn't had, a book about 4 people in their 80s drinking wine and outwitting the police. So actually, it was a real strength. Always write what other people aren't writing, I think, is the key, because publishers and agents, they see the same thing again and again and again and again. So if no one else is doing your idea, the easiest thing is to think, oh, it's a really bad idea. Or you have a way of writing that no one else writes like that, so you think, oh, this is really bad. Those are your big strengths. Different ideas to other people, different way of writing to other people, and that's the way to sell, I think.
And your audio?
Oh, my audio book, yeah. We asked Leslie Manville, and she said yes. Which was great, and then she had to go off to play Princess Margaret in The Crown, so she couldn't do the third one, and we were like, oh no, we can't replace Leslie Manville, she's amazing. And then Fiona Shaw said, oh, I really love these books, can I read them? And you're like, yeah, you can. I had to do an interview with her the other day for the audiobook at the end of the audiobook.
I've heard it, yeah.
And can you hear how terrified I was?
Yes.
Yeah, good. I was not covering it well.
Definitely had Killing Eve vibes. And
exactly that. No, but they're both absolutely brilliant. I was very lucky.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I like this walking forward to a microphone.
Hello, Richard.
Hello.
I think, like a lot of people in the States, I came to know your work through, originally at the beginning of the pandemic, through the classic English prepositional phrase of putting the yoga balls on the mat on the top of the hill.
Yeah, thank you. It's my finest moment.
Yeah, changed the game.
Do you know what? It did change the game.
It did?
This is Taskmaster, a show in the UK. They have to have so many sub-rules now to all of their tasks, and that's because of me.
Yeah.
That's because I did not want to run to the top of a hill.
You made it work for you.
Yeah.
So I think, through that, we found our way to 8 out of 10 Cats' Countdown, and then, House of Games, and have learned what the UK Christmas #1s are, and all the winners of Strictly Come Dancing, which I've never seen an episode of, but have formed opinions about.
You must. You'd love it.
And I guess through all of that, we've got to meet sort of a cast of characters that don't exist over here, but have really taken a hold and are all very charming. And a lot of them are writers themselves. And I'm curious sort of what your experience is in sort of working with, both in TV, a lot of very funny and smart people who also are writers too, and whether or not there's sort of an overlap there, and sort of how that has worked in informing your work.
I think it's a really good question, and it's, there are lots of TV writers go into novel writing, right? And it's, some of them are famous, and so they're saying, oh, it's a celebrity's written a novel. And you go, it's not. It's a writer has written a novel. And the one interesting thing about performers on television, I always think there's 3 types of intelligence. You can have depth of thought, originality of thought, and speed of thought, right? Those are the 3 things. And by and large, people who are comedians or on television, they have speed of thought, and that is all they have. And so, by and large, the first thing I ever write is always going to be the best thing. If I go back and rewrite, it's not getting any better. So novelists, by and large, have depth of thought, and they'll go back and go back and go back and just shine these things up and make them incredible. But I think people from TV sometimes have more speed of thought, which is, I just want to entertain you. We're absolutely going to race through this, and there's going to be loads of characters, there's going to be loads of scenes, because I just want to constantly I want new things happening all the time, and I think that's that speed of thought thing. So I'd love to be one of those authors when you read sort of languorous 60-page chapters. Who here, when you get to a chapter, immediately flicks to see the page where the end of the chapter is? Right?
And if it's more than just 10, you, just you.
Yeah. If it's more than 10 pages, you're like, oh god, really? I'm gonna have to read about this crocus for 10 pages now. So I like short chapters, but yeah, I think that comes from that TV thing of of being able to react to what you just heard with something, and I think that's why I write short things, and that comes from TV, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you watched Taskmaster.
Oh, very good. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Come on.
Hello.
Hello.
I also am a huge fan from Taskmaster because
Okay.
during the pandemic, you watch through so much Netflix and you get bored, and then you go to other countries and see what they have
Yeah.
to offer. And Taskmaster was a great
Yeah.
thing to fill, the time. So
And you think, what on earth is this? And you think, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, it did not translate very well here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did your own version, right?
Yeah, but yeah. And so my question is, you did touch about the movie. Helen Mirren automatically is who I envision when it's Elizabeth.
Yeah. Why don't you shout it across the street?
You should be Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you.
So I was wondering, who would your dream cast
Yeah.
for the A-Team?
It's such a good question because to me, they're very real human beings. These four. So the idea of someone playing them is slightly weird. But the truth is, and again, this is this thing about writing about older characters. There's so many incredible older actors. I mean, you're not sort of, they're lining up to do it. I'd be very happy with an American playing one of them, so long as they could do I'm sure Meryl Streep can do a British accent, right? Surely she can do everything else. I was on the Graham Norton show with Tom Hanks, and I was talking to him, and I was saying, look, you can play Ron if you can do a British accent, and he then proceeded to do the worst British accent, and you think you can do an awful lot, Tom Hanks, but you cannot do a Cockney West Ham fan. I'm afraid. So yeah, I wouldn't mind some Americans in there. Diane Keaton, can she play English? I'm sure she can. And then just loads of no Diane Keaton. Okay, hold on. I got to talk to Spielberg. Hold on a minute. DC are saying no to Diane. I'm so sorry. So yeah, I don't mind whoever. But yeah, Helen Mirren would be amazing.
For Joyce, who would you picture?
Joyce, do you guys know Julie Walters over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, oh my God! Imagine if Julie Walters was here; she would have loved that.
Yeah.
So we're going. Oh my God, they love me.
We do.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, we love Julie Walters, but I think she would be an amazing Joyce. I can absolutely see that.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Hi, sir.
Stephen King has surrealism in a lot of his books, but Dean Koontz not so much. For example, in Soul Survivor, he uses it as a metaphor to talk about topics which would otherwise not be polite to be explicit about. How do you use surrealism?
Gosh, that's a very good question. By and large, I don't. By and large, I like things to happen in the order they happen, and I like them to be real and have a reality. I was thinking the other day I'd love to do some time travel stuff, because that's the only sort of magical realism thing that I love. I love a bit of time travel, but I like to go from A to B to C to D, and I use humor a lot. And some of that humor, of course, there's a surreality to it, and the very basic setup of Thursday Murder Club, which is this shouldn't really be happening. And I'm putting four people in situations they shouldn't really be in. And so, you have that juxtaposition in lots and lots of scenes where four people are in a situation that they should not be in. And so there's some natural surrealism that comes from that. But I never sort of force it in. And I never sort of think, wouldn't it be crazy if? I try and just think, what's the natural, funniest way this would play out? And occasionally that has surreal elements to it. But yeah, I'd love to write a time travel thing. I'm very comfortable with time travel. You could put time travel in anything, and I'd read it.
But the humor is also so natural in your books. Am I right in thinking you're a Woodhouse fan?
Yeah, I absolutely love Woodhouse. I was in Hatchard's in London, which is a bookshop, which is beautiful if you're ever in London on Piccadilly, and they have one wall which is P.G. Woodhouse and Agatha Christie. And I thought, well, there we go. That's my wall right there. But the key thing with it is, and whether that touches on surrealism, is I'm never sure about humor in crime fiction. I think it takes you out of the story. So my key thing is I was trying desperately not to write a funny book. That was my desperate, that was what I was. The desire was there, and so there are no jokes in the book, right? Every bit of humor comes from character and comes from the thing that person would say in that situation. So I try not. All I'm doing all the way through is trying desperately not to be funny, but the characters won't let me. Thank you.
Stephen King wrote Misery based on shocking personal experience. How important is personal experience in your writing?
Well, hopefully not as important as, someone coming around and smashing my ankles in with a with a sledgehammer. No, really important. I try and write about the life that's around me, and that's the verisimilitude you have to have in these books. And if it's happened to someone I know or it's happened to me, then I know it can happen to one of the characters. So that's my basic standpoint. Try and make up as little as possible.
House of Games question.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's a lot of British TV stuff going on in DC.
How do you choose your contestants? So many times the group seem to integrate so well together. And accepting Mike Bubbins, who's your favorite return contestant?
My favorite ever contestant was Ingrid Oliver, my wife. So that's... I liked Mike as well. No, honestly, I have a veto. With that show, spoiler alert, we film all 5 in a day, right? So it's like Christmas. And so I have a veto on who can be on the show. If people don't know it, it's a quiz show. It's 4 celebrities come on. They play across a week in ridiculous rounds, but very, very competitive. So I know I'm spending all day with these people. And the key thing when you're making a TV show is make it quickly, because the crew do not want to be there late. And so I have a veto, and I make sure that anyone who I know to be trouble, and the wrong sort of trouble, is not on the show. So I just try and get people I know will enjoy themselves, I know will be competitive, and I know will get on with each other. And by and large, it works. A couple of times we've had people on, and I thought, that person won't be coming back. But it doesn't happen often. And then I just get to be a dinner party host, and I get to sort of gently chide them as the show goes on.
Thank you.
I love that people watch House of Games over here. That's great.
Hello, Richard Osman.
Hello there.
Obviously, your books are peppered with lots of British references
Yes.
that I pretend that only I get.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
I know.
Yeah.
But now that you know that your books are loved internationally, does it affect how many British references you put in, or does your editor end up stamping some of them out?
Yeah, it affects how many I put in. I put more in. Do you know what? Come on. Do you know, it's interesting. I've been amazed at how well they've sold around the world, because they're very British. But then I thought, well, if I read an American book, I want it to be incredibly American. I don't want them to be sort of making it transatlantic. If I read a Chinese book, make it incredibly Chinese. And so I think people, if I read an American book about Neiman Marcus, I can work out from context what that is. I can work it out. And I think if I talk about like Oliver Bonus or something, my daughter speaks Chinese, and she was reading the Chinese version of the book, and she said the footnotes are longer than the book, because every single reference they go, Oliver Bonus is a shop that Lilt is a drink made of pineapple and grapefruit and soda. Yeah, she said literally every single reference is but no, the Americans don't change anything. The only thing they ever changed was in the first book, where they were going, something's happening in this book we don't understand. And I was like, okay. They say, it says here, Ron goes for a slash in the woods. Oh. Right? And a slash in English, it means he's having a wee. That's what he's doing in the woods. And they were like, have we missed a murder here? It feels like we've missed a murder.
That's the classic, what time shall I knock you up problem.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're very good, though. I think they encourage me to be even more English.
Excellent. I'm hoping they'll do the same with me.
Yes. Good luck.
Hello, Mr. Osman.
Hello there.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One about Thursday
greedy.
Murder Club.
I'll tell you what. We'll be the judge of whether you have 2 questions or not. You better make the first one a good one.
Okay. Well, the first question is, did you have a favorite book to write out of the 4 Thursday Murder Club books?
That's okay. You can have 2 questions. That's a good one. I'll give you that. It's a really hard question. The first one, I sort of didn't know I was writing a Thursday Murder Club book, if you know what I mean. I was doing something that I felt uncomfortable with and was difficult, but I was proud of. So I look back very fondly on that. And the second one, I'd written before the first one came out, so I was writing it, and that was during lockdown as well. So maybe the second one, because I'd sort of worked out how to do it. Because
sophomore slump issue.
As soon as you've had notes from an editor the first time, you don't need the same note. You go, I know exactly what you're going to say here. There are 14 more suspects than there need to be. So I'll just put fewer suspects in. But I sort of, maybe the first one, because I'm so proud that I actually, picked up the pen and started. Question 1.
Yeah.
We'll allow it.
My
Yeah.
stellar second question about Pointless. I've been
Okay.
watching Pointless for years. I love Pointless. How do they come up with Pointless categories? You can get a final round looking like the year 2019, corn chart and entertainment, golf championship winners, and rare breeds of poultry.
I will go for golf championship winners, please. Yeah, there's just a whole team of people whose full-time job all year is coming up with categories, and then if you don't know the show, you poll 100 people on every single thing, and when the poll results come back, some things no one knows anything about.
Like poultry?
So you can't, like poultry, so you can't really use it. But some things everyone knows everything about, so you can't use that either. And so it's oh my god, I wouldn't want to be the person who has to put the questions together. It doesn't really work as a format. Pointless is the truth. It's just a couple of people having fun, but the actual question writing is an absolute nightmare. I'm told. You got a third question? You okay?
No, I think I'm good.
Yay, there we go.
Don't want to tire you out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that is called making an entrance.
So, quick question about point of view. What was
Yes.
that made you decide to go for third person? I mean, my agent would be like, no.
Well, do you know what? I didn't even think about it. The very first thing I did was Joyce doing her
First person.
diary, yeah. And that was me essentially thinking, well, I don't really know how to write, and by which I mean on the very, very basest level of that, which is what business is it of mine to describe what somebody looks like or what the sky looks like, and it felt like, what business is it of mine to be an author? It seems absurd that someone's going to read about someone. And the second I got Joyce to say it for me, I got out of the way of the whole thing, and so that's what started me. And then all the third person stuff, I try and sort of write. I try and be inside someone's head in the way that I write. So I'm not always describing their thoughts, but just in the language I will use, I try and use the language of Ibrahim or the language of Ron or the language of Elizabeth. But the truth is, I don't think about it. It's all in the present tense. It's all which you're not supposed to do, I'm told, after 3 books. But you know what? It seems to be working, so I'm going to keep doing it. So I just write the thing that I find fastest and where I get out of the way of the story as much as I possibly can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So let's make this the last question, and then we can get to the signing line.
It's a lot of pressure always on the last question, isn't it?
Sorry.
Listen,
now
sorry.
I'm on the spot.
yeah, listen. It's whatever it is, we're going to make the best of it. I promise you that.
Thank you.
I promise
Thank
you
you
that.
very much. Well, really, I just wanted to thank you so much for writing your books. They're
thank you.
fantastic, and I just...
That's good. She's good.
Yeah,
She's
they
good.
so enrich our lives. I love reading them. I love listening to them. I love talking about them and hearing
thank
other
you.
people's opinions. So thank you. And for me, especially, one of the things that really moves me is we have a lot of problems with culture war in our country.
Don't we
My
just?
God, you just take it on in
Yeah.
such a wonderful way. People talk. People
Yeah.
share their lives. Every person that you introduce is a person, and they've got their good and their bad and their
Yeah.
funny and their whatever. And I just think it's such a great gift, and I'm so appreciative of you for taking that task on for us all.
Well, I'll take that not as a question, but a very, very lovely way to end. So thank you. That's
Thank
much
you.
appreciated.
You nailed it.
Thank you.